I am so sorry.
It's okay. This is so bizarre. It's like, this is so not you.
I'm so sorry. I like looked at my clock and I was like, ah! Yeah, okay.
Okay, you're fine. This is like, Danielle, there's some people I could do this with and I'd be like, I'm concerned. I'm like, oh, this is like just the most fluky thing I can imagine, so you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. Sorry, I was in the middle.
No, totally fine.
Okay. Let's jump in so we
Yes.
maximize your time here. Well, actually, before that, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Yes, I'm late because I'm a little stressed actually about our debate that's about to happen and was grading their work. Just lost track of time.
Okay.
So that's my bad.
No, okay, got it. So is there anything you want to talk about the debate?
Yes, but let's do this
We'll
first.
add it to the
'cause
end
yeah.
of the discussion. Okay, great. In terms of, are there any next steps from last week we have to touch base on?
So goals.
Yeah.
But I still I wasn't quite clear, and I should have emailed you about what exactly those goals need to be. So I've been thinking through what I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how they need to be phrased. I'm also not even sure how many I need.
I would say two.
Okay, totally fine. It was my fault for not reaching out.
Yeah.
The two areas of focus though for me were CFUs.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that I am gathering that data in class.
Great.
And then I'm not even sure if this is on the rubric, but I want to know how to learn and improve how to better incorporate the data that I get from written work. So after
So those would all be use of data.
Okay.
So that would be all under 2A.
Awesome.
Great. So if you can, have you seen Platinum yet? You know, Danielle, we should figure it. We should meet and I should show you how to do this. This is you had no idea what it was.
Totally fine.
This is now a mutual action step. Do you have any 5 minutes after school today that we can check in about this?
Absolutely.
Okay, just pop into my office. I'll be in there.
Okay, so.
Great. Do you want to shoot you an email? Great. Danielle. Goals. Meeting. If there is any fear about being a little, I've been taking a fair amount of cold medication and I don't.
No worries.
So, let's get into the lesson.
Yes.
Okay. So, great, I had the quick hit goals. So I was in there primarily for the close reading.
Mm-hmm.
Lit, and it's good because I don't really see you teach lit much, which
Yeah.
is nice, which is fun to watch. So, do you recall the lesson at all?
I do. So we were going through the last part of Judith Orritt's essay,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember distinctly a couple of the things that like had happened during the block when you were there. So like the first thing that comes to mind is what happened with Deshaun. How like there was a lot of
That he didn't know the answer?
he didn't.
Wait, we're supposed to start with things that are good.
I'm sorry. So things that I thought were going well. I can't remember if this happened when you were in the room. Malcolm has been participating like nobody's business. It's been
Yay,
really
that's
most exciting
awesome.
thing.
How do you think that happened?
So I think that one, the smaller group setting really empowered him. Two, I made sure, because it was a smaller group and I was able to check in more, I made sure that as I was looping to him, I was really giving very targeted feedback, like, this is an excellent point, you need to adjust this point. And I think that helped give him the confidence of like, oh, yeah.
That's
I do
so
have a good
great.
answer. So
that's a good keep doing. I actually have a couple. I'm going to start going through them.
Yeah.
One, I thought you gave a couple of really strong, just non-invasive level 1 and level 2s. So they didn't all interrupt the flow of your instruction. So you were like, Vienna, that's level 2 for kicking your peer's chair, and Kwasine, that's level 1 for distracting others. We're back in text. They were totally non-invasive, and they didn't interrupt the flow of the block. And you had a similar one, though. Sean said, I didn't know, we didn't have anything. You said, Sean, that's 1. We all need to make sure we're at least writing, and then moved on. So they weren't, it didn't steal the show of the class. The kids were getting corrected. It's still, and that was really strong. Other things, your use of academic language, and I meant to tell you this also last week, but Tara was saying like, wow, she uses really strong academic language, and then I was like, had a particular ear for it when I was in there, and you use a ton of, you just are such a professional, so it's, for menial, you said, rather than you made sure that they got lacking prestige. You just used the word portray, convey. In terms of domain-specific academic language, you just did a really strong job.
awesome.
So keep doing that. And finally, you held out for right is right on a number of instances. At one time that was particularly impressive was when Asriel gave the example of the spicy woman in the kitchen, but you wouldn't accept that wasn't right. It was you wanted it to be the funny maid, because that was an example of it, but it wasn't the specific way that the media was portraying women as menial, and I just thought that was a real commitment to right is right.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that was great.
Cool.
So now let's go into the key lever. So close reading. What do we think are, like, out of the gate, some of the challenges with close reading?
I think, so one of the things that I think Megan and I both struggled with even this being 3 days, because it was still so much text.
Mm-hmm.
And so like finding that balance of like, what do we really dive into and spend time on, as opposed to like, what are some points where it's like a quick drop in, but like this isn't actually essential.
Mm-hmm. Especially though with UGA and like this kind of text, also just access and like rigor.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard. So then thinking about that, like in a dream world, what do kids who like it could be a struggle with look like when they're like engaging with like a super rigorous text?
Mm-hmm. The first thing that comes to mind is kids who, during the first like cold read, which we set it up as the do now, have really just strong annotations out of the bat. Not even necessarily like unpacking everything, but like whether it's like a really targeted question.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You know, how does this relate to this? Or like we saw this idea repeated earlier in the essay, or like making those connections. So seeing kids generate strong annotations independently, even though we go in together as a class.
Yeah, I think that's something. So these kind of lessons are interesting though, also because for me, when I think of really rigorous text, often I think of like being engaged, and I think of like hands, 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 hands. And sometimes that's incredibly hard for close reading, because it's like, I remember that moment with Sky when she was like, I'm not really sure. I don't, right? It looks almost a little bit different, or can be really challenging. So something I was thinking about, like, so what does like learning on, I'm really focused, but I maybe not be like, I know every single answer, like what that looks like. And so, anyway, I was trying to brainstorm around it. and let's watch a clip.
Yeah.
And I want you from the lesson. I've been like have been in a session with videotaping everything. So let's look at a clip and note like moments of like where you are like, okay, this is what engagement looks like. Maybe this isn't any as high engagement. Great. If you want to jot down any of the minutes that stand out, like, oh, really strong high engagement. Okay. Would you characterize that as potentially like high engagement with a rigorous text?
No.
Okay, let's keep watching. Okay, keep watching.
When you say engaging, do you mean like all of the kids engaging? So like I had several different responses and kids were getting it wrong, but like.
So I actually thought that was, I mean like strong minds on. So I actually thought that like beginning portion, like I walked in, kids' heads weren't in, it was like a hard question, but they were like,
okay,
strong minds on, yeah?
Okay, got it.
Great.
If you need to go, that's my bad for that.
Stopping there. Minds on, strong minds on, not strong minds on.
Hard to tell. I would probably say much less so than the beginning.
I think so too. So I think in the beginning, it was like, that's what I imagined, like thinking, okay, so we'll keep watching and then we'll try and trace it, like, what were the teacher actions right before into the student actions?
Mm-hmm.
stop and then we're going to go to the question sequence. What do you think through? There were actually two separate chunks there.
So one was when Viana was reading.
Mm-hmm.
The other was when everyone was like everything. So it was actually painful to look at that passage with Viana reading, just because it's so clear that like minds are off for everyone, and even for her, I don't think that she was actually there all the way. So like the rigor there being pretty low. When the kids go immediately into write, it looks like everyone is writing and engaging. So I guess like even just watching that, I was thinking about the importance of having more student participation, more student voices in engaging with that text.
Yeah, awesome. Let's watch there, you get into a bit of a discussion. I want to watch that as the closeout.
He also does so much better when he stands.
I know, I used to teach him, I know. So we'll go on, and they're like the discussion roles, and like kids can. What about this section? Would you say?
I think more engagement. Maybe it doesn't seem to be quite as engaged as the very first portion that we saw.
Yeah. So now thinking through this, so I would say my key lever was just there was inconsistent levels of like kids totally minds on.
Mm-hmm.
So then like thinking through the moments that the kids were the most minds on. What were like the things that we saw? What were like kids doing, or what were your inputs that led them there?
So I think with the first one, it was just a much clearer, this is what I'm looking for. So like you're identifying what the meaning of one specific word. So kids were like able to identify, I can be successful if I can determine the meaning of the specific word. I think in this one, the reason it's not quite as engaged and there aren't quite as many kids eager to answer is because it was a little bit more unclear. Like,
so maybe like potentially rigor of task. I would also argue, especially in the beginning, it was one thing. It was so 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So the major difference was, and especially then we'll like go on to a question sequence, like kids are actually like, pretty involved. It's actually the one where Asriel like makes the main piece, because it's like it's a simpler question, but it becomes an 100% moment, and the momentum starts to build.
Mm-hmm.
So my major takeaway from the lesson is like we see the strongest student engagement when there's high levels of momentum.
Okay.
And I think there are 3 tactics we can use to make sure that we're always creating high momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of any? I have them if you want, go through them.
You can just go through.
Great. So the first is movement, actually. So in terms of, in that video, like in following the motion, I understand why you were always circulating in the same area, but your pace was similar, right? But versus, and sometimes it's different in a small group, but I've seen you also with Ithaca, like really work the room, being like. So I think in momentum, one, just like physical movement, and we actually see that there's a moment that you do that later with it. You can build it with physical movement.
Okay.
2, asking and holding an 100% question. So I was thinking also potentially that time you send kids in, just doing a call and response. Like call your first word, or menial means lacking prestige, menial means lacking prestige. Mm-hmm. Especially with a rigorous close reading test, at least like Deshawn. Like Deshawn, I think Deshawn was being defiant with his, I don't know. It's just like a way for him to get a right answer. So yeah, those would be 2 inputs. I guess you made the point, and I didn't. I thought your questions were clear, but I guess if you were.
I guess like for UGA, I think that there are times when in my mind, I'm asking them to take 3 steps. Like that's what my question is doing, and I do want them to be able to get there. But sometimes they do need a question where it's like one step. Okay, now take 2.
Yeah.
Like, instead of that just immediate jump.
And then the final one, and you do it also when you get into that, I want to sort of watch that last question sequence, would be modulating, similar with your body, the cadence of speech and volume of speech. So like using quiet power, then into strong voice. Speaking slowly into speaking quickly. I think those are the ways just like consistently maintain momentum. Are there any questions?
No, I think like, I've actually been thinking a lot about this with Ithaca, like what is it that makes our discussions sometimes so strong in writing? And like, I think it's because I am doing these things, I just didn't know I was doing these things, and so wasn't doing them consistently. Because then there are discussions that bomb, and I'm like, what?
Like that assertion, or the assertion discussion where there was such high momentum.
Yeah.
These things are happening. Totally. Okay, shoot, we're at, what time?
Just like 2 minutes.
Okay, you should go. We were gonna practice potentially with the, this writing piece for, Wednesday, I guess, because I realized that I'm teaching the other one we practiced yesterday, but, that's fine.
Check in about that, because will you have maybe 10 minutes after school where we could like, I'd love to finish this up.
Great.
I just feel bad that I was.
Okay, great. I will see you later.
Yes.
And we'll finish up after school.
Perfect.
Okay. Bye, Danielle.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your day. Oh, good luck with the debate.
You know, it's just gonna happen.
It's just gonna happen.
Make it work.
If you want to film, you have your camera. Sometimes that's like helpful to be like, what?
That's true. Oh, it's in the TR. It's okay.
Okay.
But we'll make it work.